I need you to listen to me because what I'm about to tell you is going to sound completely insane. I know that. I lived it, and I still don't fully understand how it happened. But every single word of this story is true. My phone rang at exactly midnight. I was asleep in my bed, alone in my apartment, and the sound jolted me awake like an electric shock. I grabbed my phone from the nightstand and looked at the screen. The caller ID showed two words that didn't make any sense. Future me. I stared at it for 3 rings. My brain was foggy from sleep, and I thought maybe I was dreaming. Maybe it was a glitch. Maybe someone was playing a weird prank on me. But something made me answer. Something told me I needed to hear what was on the other end of that call. I pressed the phone to my ear and said hello. The voice that answered back made every hair on my body stand up. It was my voice, not similar to my voice, not someone doing an impression. It was exactly my voice, the same pitch, the same way I breathe between words, the same slight rasp I get when I'm tired or scared. And she was terrified. She said, "I know this sounds crazy. I know you think this is a joke, but I am you. I'm calling from 6 hours in the future. In 10 minutes, something terrible is going to happen to you. You need to check behind you right now." I turned around slowly. My bedroom door was standing wide open, but I had locked it before I went to sleep. I always lock it, every single night without fail. The voice on the phone started crying. She said, "He's already inside the building. Please, please listen to me. I'm trying to save us." Before we go any further, drop a comment and tell me where you're watching from, and hit that subscribe button because this story is just getting started. My name is Ren Holloway. I'm 26 years old. I work as a data analyst at a tech company in Portland, Oregon. I don't believe in ghosts or psychics or anything supernatural. I believe in facts, numbers, logic, things I can see and prove. But that night, I got a phone call that broke every rule of reality I thought I understood. A phone call from myself. A phone call that saved my life. My older brother Declan is 31. He lives about 30 minutes away from my apartment with his wife Nadia and their 2 kids. We used to be really close when we were younger, but life got busy and we drifted apart. We still talked, but not like before, not the way siblings should. That night, Declan got a phone call too. A call that sent him racing across the city at midnight to save his little sister from something neither of us could have predicted. This is the story of the night I almost died, the impossible warning that changed everything, and the question I still can't answer. If the future version of me sent that call, does she still exist somewhere? Or did saving me erase her completely? 8 months before that phone call, I packed up my entire life and moved to Portland. I didn't know anyone here. I didn't have any friends in the city. I came here because I needed to run away from everything I knew. I had been with my boyfriend Marcus for 5 years. We met in college, moved in together after graduation, and I thought we were going to get married. I thought he was my person, the one I would build a life with. I was so sure of it that I never saw what was happening right in front of my face. He had been cheating on me for over a year, with a coworker, with someone he introduced me to at a company party. I shook her hand and told her it was nice to meet her while she was sleeping with the man I loved. I found out by accident, a text message that popped up on his phone while he was in the shower. I wasn't snooping. I wasn't suspicious. I just glanced over at the wrong moment and saw words that shattered everything I believed about my life. The breakup was ugly. I cried for weeks. I couldn't eat. I couldn't sleep. I couldn't look at our apartment without seeing memories that now felt like lies. So I did the only thing that made sense. I applied for jobs in cities where I didn't know anyone. I got an offer in Portland. I took it without hesitation. Starting over sounded brave. It sounded empowering. But the truth is, I was just running. And when you run from your problems, the loneliness follows you wherever you go. My apartment in Portland was small but nice. 1 bedroom on the 3rd floor of a secure building with a coded entry system. The neighborhood was quiet and safe. I had never had any problems. No break-ins, no strange people lurking around. It was the kind of place where nothing bad ever happened. I developed certain habits after the breakup. I checked the locks on my front door twice before going to bed. I started locking my bedroom door too. even though I lived alone. I kept my phone on the nightstand with the volume turned all the way up in case of emergencies. I told myself these were just normal safety precautions, but deep down, I knew it was more than that. The betrayal with Marcus had broken something inside me. I didn't trust anyone anymore. I didn't even trust myself. That Thursday night, I went to bed early because I had a big presentation at work the next morning. I was nervous about it. I had been preparing for weeks, and I needed a good night's sleep. I checked my alarm 3 times. I double-checked the front door lock. I closed my bedroom door and locked it like I always did. I remember lying in bed and staring at the ceiling for a few minutes. My apartment was completely silent. The only sound was the faint hum of traffic from the street below. I felt safe, secure. Just another ordinary night in my ordinary new life. I fell asleep around 10:30. I had no idea that someone had been watching me for weeks, following me home from work, learning my schedule, memorizing which lights I turned on at night and what time they went off. I had no idea that he had figured out the entry code to my building by watching over my shoulder one morning when I was too tired to notice. I had no idea that while I was sleeping peacefully in my bed, a stranger was climbing the stairs toward my apartment with a knife in his pocket and zip ties in his bag. I had no idea that in less than 2 hours, I would be fighting for my life. But somehow, somewhere, a future version of me knew, and she found a way to warn me. At exactly midnight, my phone rang. The screen lit up the darkness of my bedroom. I opened my eyes, confused and groggy, and reached for it without thinking. The caller ID glowed with 2 impossible words, future me. I should have ignored it. I should have assumed it was spam or a glitch or some kind of weird wrong number. But something made me answer. Some instinct I can't explain. Some voice in the back of my head that whispered this call matters. I pressed the green button and held the phone to my ear. And then I heard my own voice say, "Please don't hang up. I know this is impossible, but I'm you, and I'm calling to save your life." The voice on the phone was shaking so hard I could barely understand the words. But I understood enough. She said she was me. She said she was calling from 6 hours in the future. She said that at 6 a.m., after surviving the worst night of her life, she figured out how to send one phone call back in time. Just one. And she chose this exact moment because this was when I still had a chance to change what was about to happen. I wanted to hang up. I wanted to believe this was some kind of sick prank. Maybe an ex-coworker with too much time on their hands. Maybe a scammer using voice technology to mess with me. But the voice knew things. She knew that I had locked my bedroom door before going to sleep. She knew about the small scar on my left knee from when I fell off my bike at age 7. She knew that I still kept my childhood stuffed rabbit hidden in the back of my closet, because throwing it away felt like throwing away the last piece of my innocence. Nobody knew about that rabbit. Not Marcus, not my friends, not even Declan. I had never told a single person that I still had it. The future voice told me to look at my bedroom door. I turned my head slowly and felt my stomach drop. The door was wide open. I had locked it. I was absolutely certain I had locked it, because I locked it every single night without exception. But there it was, standing open, revealing nothing but darkness in the hallway beyond. She told me not to scream. She told me not to turn on any lights. She said the man who broke into my apartment was watching my windows from somewhere in the hallway. If I turned on a light or made any loud noise, he would know I was awake. He would come for me immediately. Right now, he thought I was still asleep. That was the only advantage I had. I asked her who he was. What did he want? Why was he in my apartment? She started crying harder. She said his name was Gerald Marsh. She said he had been stalking me for weeks, following me home from work, learning my routine, watching me through my windows at night. She said in the original timeline, the one she lived through, I never got this phone call. I saw my open bedroom door, assumed I had forgotten to lock it, and went back to sleep. 20 minutes later, he found me. She said she spent 3 months in the hospital after that night. Broken bones, internal bleeding, scars that would never fully heal. The physical wounds eventually got better. The mental ones didn't. She said she hadn't slept through the night in months. She said she still couldn't close her eyes without seeing his face. I was crying now too. silent tears streaming down my cheeks while I pressed the phone against my ear so hard it hurt. I wanted to run. I wanted to scream. I wanted to call the police and have them storm my apartment and drag this man away in handcuffs. But the voice told me I couldn't do any of those things. Not yet. If I called 911, I would have to talk out loud. He would hear me. He would know I was awake. The police wouldn't arrive in time. She said my brother was already coming. She had called Declan first, 30 minutes ago. She told him everything. She begged him to drive to my apartment as fast as possible. He didn't ask questions. He didn't demand explanations. He just got in his car and started driving. He would be here in 12 minutes. All I had to do was hide, stay silent, stay alive for 12 more minutes. The voice gave me instructions. She told me to slide out of bed slowly, without making any noise. She told me to move along the wall toward my closet, because the floorboard near my dresser creaks. She told me to wait until I heard the man move down the hallway before opening the closet door, because the hinges squeak and he might hear it. I asked her how she knew all of this, how she knew exactly which floorboards made noise and which ones were safe. She said she had replayed that night in her mind 1,000 times. Every sound, every detail, every mistake she made that led to him finding her. She memorized every inch of that apartment from her hospital bed while she was learning how to walk again. 12 minutes. That's all I needed to survive. 12 minutes until my brother arrived. 12 minutes until this nightmare ended. I took a deep breath and started to move. I made a decision in that moment. I chose to believe the impossible. Not because I suddenly believed in time travel or supernatural phone calls, but because the alternative was too dangerous to risk. If the voice was telling the truth and I ignored her, I could die tonight. If the voice was somehow lying or wrong and I hid anyway, the worst thing that would happen is I would feel stupid in the morning. The math was simple. One option meant possible embarrassment. The other option meant possible death. I chose to survive. I slid out of bed so slowly that it took me almost a full minute to get both feet on the floor. The sheets rustled slightly and I froze, holding my breath, listening for any sound from the hallway. Nothing. Just silence. Just the pounding of my own heart echoing in my ears. The future voice whispered instructions through the phone. She told me to stay low and move along the wall toward the closet. She reminded me about the floorboard near my dresser. I had lived in this apartment for 8 months and never noticed that one board creaked louder than the others. But she knew. She had memorized every detail of this room during the worst night of her life. I pressed my back against the wall and started inching toward the closet. The darkness was so thick I could barely see my own hands. I wanted to turn on a light so badly. I wanted to see what was in front of me, but I kept hearing her voice in my head, telling me that he was watching the windows. Any light would give me away. My foot brushed against the creaky floorboard. I stopped immediately and shifted my weight to the other side. The board stayed silent. I kept moving. The closet was only 10 feet away from my bed. In normal circumstances, I could cross that distance in 3 seconds. That night, it took me almost 4 minutes. Every step felt like walking through wet concrete. Every breath felt like screaming into a megaphone. I was certain that at any moment, a hand would reach out from the darkness and grab me. I heard something in the living room, a soft sound, almost like a drawer being opened and closed. He was searching my apartment, looking for something, looking for me. The future voice told me to open the closet door now while he was distracted. She said the hinges would squeak, but the sound from the living room would cover it. I had maybe 5 seconds before he finished searching and moved toward the bedroom. I grabbed the closet door handle and pulled it open in one quick motion. The hinges let out a small groan. I slipped inside and pulled the door shut behind me, pressing myself into the corner among my hanging clothes and piled shoes. The darkness inside the closet was absolute. I couldn't see anything. I could only feel. My hands found the soft fabric of my winter coat. My feet bumped against a shoebox, and then my fingers touched something familiar, something I hadn't held in years. My childhood stuffed rabbit, the one nobody knew about, the one the future voice mentioned on the phone. I pulled it against my chest and held it tight, the same way I used to hold it during thunderstorms when I was 5 years old. It smelled like dust and old memories. It felt like the only real thing in a world that had stopped making sense. The future voice told me to end the call now. The light from my phone screen could shine through the cracks in the closet door. If he saw it, he would know exactly where I was hiding. My brother was 8 minutes away. All I had to do was stay silent and wait. I whispered thank you into the phone. I don't know if she heard me. I don't know if she was still there, but I needed to say it. I needed her to know that whatever happened next, I was grateful she tried to save me. I ended the call, and the screen went dark. The closet was completely black now. I couldn't see my hand in front of my face. I could only hear the soft footsteps moving through my apartment, the sound of doors opening and closing, getting closer, getting louder. I pressed my hand over my mouth to muffle my breathing. Tears rolled down my cheeks and soaked into the fur of my stuffed rabbit. I had never prayed before in my life, but in that closet, hiding from a stranger who wanted to hurt me, I prayed. I prayed for my brother to drive faster. I prayed for the police to come. I prayed for those 8 minutes to pass without that closet door opening. 8 minutes. That's all I needed. 8 minutes to survive. The footsteps stopped outside my bedroom door. I could hear him breathing, slow and steady, like someone who had all the time in the world, like someone who had done this before and knew exactly how to be patient. I pressed myself deeper into the corner of the closet. My hand was clamped so tight over my mouth that my jaw ached. My stuffed rabbit was crushed against my chest. I could feel my heartbeat pounding through my entire body, and I was terrified that somehow he could hear it too, that the sound of my fear would give me away. He stepped into my bedroom. The floorboard near my dresser creaked under his weight, the same floorboard the future voice had warned me about. He didn't care about being quiet anymore. He knew I was here somewhere. He was done searching the other rooms. This was the last place left to look. I heard him check under my bed, the sound of fabric rustling as he lifted the comforter and looked beneath the frame. Then footsteps again, moving toward my bathroom. The door opened. A pause. The door closed. He was eliminating options one by one, being thorough, being careful. The closet was the only place left. I stopped breathing. I literally held my breath until my lungs burned because I was convinced that even the smallest sound would lead him straight to me. My eyes were squeezed shut even though the darkness was already complete. I didn't want to see. I didn't want to watch that door open and find a stranger standing there with a knife in his hand. His footsteps crossed the bedroom floor. Slow, deliberate, each one landing like a countdown to something terrible. I could picture him in my mind, even though I had never seen his face. The future voice had described him, Gerald Marsh, 34 years old, a history of stalking and assault in 3 different states. A man who had been watching me for weeks, learning everything about my life, waiting for the perfect moment to strike. The footsteps stopped right outside the closet door. I heard his hand touch the handle. The metal rattled slightly. This was it. This was the moment. In 3 seconds, that door would open, and everything the future voice warned me about would come true, despite all her efforts to change it. Then I heard the most beautiful sound of my entire life. My front door crashed open with a bang so loud it shook the walls. My brother's voice exploded through the apartment, shouting my name at the top of his lungs. Declan sounded furious and terrified at the same time. He was screaming for me to stay hidden, screaming that he was here, screaming that everything was going to be okay. The man outside my closet door froze. I heard him take a sharp breath. Then his footsteps moved away from the closet, fast and panicked. He was running. Declan was yelling. Something crashed in the living room. Glass shattered. Bodies hit the floor. I stayed in the closet. The future voice had told me to stay hidden until my brother came to get me himself. She said not to come out no matter what I heard. So I stayed there in the darkness, clutching my rabbit, crying silently while the sounds of a struggle echoed through my apartment. Then I heard sirens. Distant at first, but getting closer. Someone in the building must have called the police when they heard Declan break down my door. The sirens grew louder until they were right outside. Red and blue lights flashed through the cracks in my closet door. Voices shouted commands. More footsteps. More chaos. And then silence. The closet door opened slowly. I flinched back, pressing myself against the wall, ready to fight even though I had no weapon and no strength left. But it was Declan's face that appeared in the doorway. My brother. His lip was bleeding and his shirt was torn, but he was alive. He was okay. He reached out his hand and said my name so softly it almost broke me. I grabbed his hand and let him pull me out of that closet. He wrapped his arms around me and held on so tight I could barely breathe. I didn't care. I held him back just as tight. He told me the man ran when he heard the sirens. The police caught him trying to escape through the back stairwell. They found a knife in his pocket and zip ties in his bag. He had planned something horrible for me tonight, but he didn't get the chance. Declan pulled back and looked at my face. His eyes were red and wet. He said he got the strangest phone call of his life about 30 minutes ago. A woman who sounded exactly like me called him crying and told him someone was going to break into my apartment. She begged him to drive here as fast as he could. She said if he didn't, his little sister was going to die tonight. He didn't ask questions. He didn't wait for explanations. He just got in his car and drove. He ran 3 red lights and broke every speed limit between his house and my apartment. He arrived with 2 minutes to spare. 2 minutes. That's how close I came to a completely different ending. The police kept me at the station until almost 4 in the morning. They asked me the same questions over and over again. How did I know someone was in my apartment? Why was I hiding in the closet? Who called my brother and warned him to come? I told them the truth. I told them my phone rang at midnight, and the caller ID said, "Future me," and the voice on the other end was my own voice warning me about the attack. They looked at me like I had lost my mind. I don't blame them. I would have looked at me the same way. They checked my phone records. There was no incoming call at midnight. Nothing. My call history showed the last call I received was from a coworker at 6 in the evening asking about the presentation. The call from future me didn't exist. Not according to my phone. Not according to any record anywhere. Declan's phone was different. It showed an incoming call at 11:32 p.m. from an unknown number. But when the police tried to trace it, they hit a dead end. The number didn't belong to anyone. It wasn't connected to any phone company or service. It was like someone had called him from nowhere, from a place that didn't exist. The man who broke into my apartment was named Gerald Marsh, 34 years old, originally from Ohio, but had been moving around the country for years. The police told me he had a history of stalking and assault charges in 3 different states. He had served time twice, but kept getting released. He had been in Portland for 2 months, and apparently he had been watching me for most of that time. They found a notebook in his car, pages and pages of notes about my schedule, what time I left for work, what time I came home, which grocery store I used, what I wore on different days. He had been studying me like I was a project, like I was something he was planning to take apart piece by piece. I didn't sleep for 3 days after that night. Every time I closed my eyes, I heard his footsteps in my apartment. I felt the darkness of that closet pressing in around me. I saw the door handle rattling as his hand reached for it. Declan and Nadia let me stay at their house for 2 weeks. Their kids didn't understand why Aunt Wren was sleeping on their couch, but they were sweet about it. They brought me drawings and stuffed animals and told me jokes to make me smile. I went to therapy. I still go to therapy. My therapist says what I experienced was trauma, and trauma doesn't heal on a schedule. Some days are better than others. Some nights I sleep peacefully, and some nights I wake up in a cold sweat with my heart pounding. I'm learning to be patient with myself. I'm learning that healing isn't a straight line. I moved out of that apartment. I couldn't stay there anymore. Too many memories. Too much fear soaked into those walls. I found a new place in a different neighborhood. Ground floor this time, so I have multiple exits. Better security system. And I adopted a dog named Bruno. He's a big German Shepherd mix with a deep bark that makes strangers think twice. He sleeps at the foot of my bed every night, and somehow his presence makes the darkness feel less threatening. Declan and I are closer now than we have been since we were kids. We talk every single day. He drives down every weekend to check on me, and I drive up to see him and Nadia and the kids whenever I can. That night changed something between us. We both realized how easily we could have lost each other, how one phone call, one warning, one decision to get in the car and drive made the difference between me being here and me being gone. I still think about the phone call. I think about it every day. The future version of me who lived through that horrible night, who spent 3 months in the hospital, who carried scars that would never heal. She found a way to reach back through time and warn me. She gave me the chance to change my story. But what happened to her? Did saving me erase her existence? Did she disappear the moment I survived? Or is she still out there somewhere in a different timeline, living with the memories of a night that I escaped? I will never know the answer. Nobody will. But sometimes late at night, when the apartment is quiet and Bruno is snoring at my feet, I pick up my phone and whisper, "Thank you," into the darkness, just in case she can hear me, just in case some part of her still exists and needs to know that her sacrifice meant something. I learned something important from that night. I learned that the future isn't set in stone. The worst thing you imagine doesn't have to happen. Sometimes you get a warning. Sometimes you get a second chance. Sometimes the universe bends the rules just enough to let you escape something terrible. But I also learned something else. I learned that I'm stronger than I thought. For years after Marcus cheated on me, I doubted myself. I questioned every decision. I assumed I would always make the wrong choice and end up hurt. But that night, in the span of 60 seconds, I made a choice that saved my life. I chose to believe something impossible. I chose to trust my own voice, even when that voice was coming from a place that shouldn't exist. I chose to survive, and that choice made all the difference. If your phone ever rings in the middle of the night and the caller ID shows something that doesn't make sense, answer it. It might be nothing. It might be a scam or a wrong number or a glitch in the system, but it might also be the one thing standing between you and the worst night of your life. Some calls are worth answering, even the impossible ones, especially the impossible ones. If you've ever experienced something you couldn't explain, something that saved you when nothing else could, I want to hear your story. Drop it in the comments below. Subscribe to this channel if you want more stories like this one, and share this with someone who needs to believe that second chances are real. Because they are. I'm living proof.